it's just starting. Oh,
There
hey
it is.
guys, welcome to the Bleacher Breaches podcast. We are against the boards, and today I've got Johnny with me,
What up?
all the way from Oceanside, California. Bleacher Breaches is now crossing state lines.
Crossing state lines, we're exploring new territories. This is
It's fantastic.
big
It's great.
happening.
It's great. So today we're going to talk some hockey. Hockey season starts here in about 2 weeks, so we're super excited. And before we even dive into it, John, tell us about that exciting Bruins preseason game in China.
For some reason, the NHL thought it'd be a good idea to send a East Coast team all the way out to China to apparently grow the game out there. So more credit to them. But the Bruins brought most of their JV team in a preseason matchup against the Flames. Not a whole lot to get excited about. Yeah, it's a lot of younger guys, but still a pretty solid performance. They ended with 3 goals in the first period. Game ends in a 4-3 shootout win for the Bruins. So, I mean, take what you will from it. Normally, games like those, you're only going to have guys going maybe 50 to 75%. But even then, some things I'm excited about. Yaroslav Halak, who is expected to be your backup goalie going forward, had some decent moments, I felt like. And then I was telling Alex before we got started here that one of my new favorite Bruins for this year is going to be a young player by the name of Jacob Forbacka Carlson. So a little JFK action going down on the Causeway Street. All in all, like I said, it's your first preseason game. You just want people to come out healthy and kind of get an idea for what it's going to look like.
Awesome. Yeah. So hockey is officially underway, guys. You know, and your local team is going to be having their preseason games here up coming up. So make sure to check those out. I know I'm probably going to try to make it to the Vegas game that the Sharks are having here on September 30th. So, pumped up, So before we talk about my beloved Sharks, and if you guys do get a chance to watch this on YouTube, I'm wearing my Sharks jersey. Let's talk Vegas. So they pulled off a trade literally like at 10:30 p.m. I was sleeping. Jonathan texted me and was like, I told you. So John, take it away. What happened?
So back on June 11th, we did a recording about what we expected each team to do in the offseason. And my prediction was that the Montreal Canadiens would start selling off piece by piece, whether it be for good value, minimal value, no value. I just knew this team was looking in the mirror and saying it's not working. So throughout the summer, you've seen players such as Alex Galchenyuk, who was your first-line center last season, jettisoned out. You're already reeling from PK Subban being shamed out of town for Shea Weber, who's now on the shelf for a couple months with a knee injury. And now we take it to this past Sunday where team captain Max Pacioretty is traded out to the Vegas Golden Knights for what some felt was an underwhelming package. Yes, in return, Montreal got Thomas Tatar, who can still put the puck in the back of the net. They got a promising prospect in Nick Suzuki and a couple of draft picks. But the thing is, you don't trade your team captain when you're not only an original 6 franchise, you pride yourself on being the model hockey franchise. And now you just sent your captain out to a cup contender in the West because you're raising the white flag already. So what I'm looking at now for Montreal is we're looking at a 5 to 6 year rebuild because hockey rebuilds take some time. A lot of kids end up drafting. They're 17, 18, 19 years old, and they probably don't see the majors until maybe mid-20s, sometimes 23, 24. So this could be a process that could take some time to get going for Montreal. But now you look at the flip side thing for the Vegas end, they're right back in the middle of this cup contention. You add a top-tier scoring forward, and now he's sitting on your second line, who also I feel is one of the better two-way players in the NHL, to where you could not only see him on a penalty-killing unit, but he may get some run on the first line if they want to change things up. So for the Vegas end of things, the house wins again. Like it's on all the T-shirts out there. Like they haven't necessarily bad move outside of maybe the Tatar trade where you dump out all this draft capital, and I think they got a handful of goals and points out of him, and he was sent right back out of town. So for the Vegas side of things, it comes up aces.
Yeah, and that's exactly, that's really the only drawback of this trade is the fact that Vegas already gave up on Tatar before really giving him a legitimate chance and giving him more than what 20 games before
He
he
never
shipped
found
out
a
of
spot.
City.
He never found a spot. I think that's the toughest spot is they didn't know where to put him. They didn't know who to play him with. They kind of, after the first line of Smith, Carlson, and oh God, who's the third one? Smith, Carlson,
Marchessault,
Marchessault.
good boy.
My apologies, Jonathan. But after those three locked down the entire first line, like there was nowhere else to put them because your fourth line was pretty much set. Okay, so let's put them somewhere in the second or third. Well, we have to play, Tuck. We have to play, someone else, and he never really meshed in anywhere. So now you're looking at replacing what James Neal would give you with Max Pacioretty, who I feel is not only a better rounded player than James Neal was, but I feel can do a little bit more and stay on the ice.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of funny to think about, but I mean, if you go back and look at it, the Red Wings got $5.3 million in cap space and 3 draft picks out of all this, and the team that they traded him to already gave up on him. Like, it's kind of crazy that in the long, like, it's funny to think like the Red Wings are the winners of this trade kind of.
And that's where you have to do a rebuild is slowly but surely start selling off whatever assets you can, but you need to get some kind of capital or assets in return. So for Detroit side of things, I don't know if you guys saw or not, but Henrik Zetterberg, who's been their longtime captain, he's going to be retiring. So that money's coming off the books. They already got the Datsyuk contract out of there. And I think they only have a few bad ones left, but you slowly start seeing the signs there that they need to, really start retooling this thing. So if I'm doing a rebuild, I kind of like the Detroit path of things of taking whatever assets you can, but then at the same time, let's try and get some young guys in as well.
Don't forget, the golden boy Steve Yzerman is coming back home.
See, no, that's weird because you never see a GM step down in the middle of a cup contention period. And for him to wake up randomly one morning and say, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, when you probably have one of the most stacked rosters in the entire NHL, and now all of a sudden that you want to step down, there's something else to that kind of business that doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was homesick, but that could just, you're right, could be complete baloney, and we don't know.
Who in their right mind would rather live in Detroit than Tampa Bay?
I don't know, people that really like Little Caesars pizza?
It's Detroit.
No. Okay. Well, going back to Vegas, yeah, no, I think Suzuki was definitely a super promising prospect, but that's exactly what he was, right? He was a prospect. In the next couple of years, you never knew what was going to happen, and he could have completely gone down the toilet. Now that's Montreal's problem.
Well, you also look at it from the Vegas side of things. If your window's open right now, you have to take advantage of it. So if you think you can continue to, contend in the West, you reload. You don't run it back almost because you have to say this group fell short last year, or we got burnt out, or teams kind of got a fix on what we were doing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you can reapproach this season with what I feel is a more balanced roster, you're in a better position now.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. Definitely seems like Vegas is trying to make another cup run, and along with another team in the Pacific that we'll get to in a little bit. But let's really touch on Montreal side of this. So Montreal, of course, gets Tatar, a couple of draft picks, and Nick Suzuki. Like John said, June 11th, we said it, they were going to sell. So really, what's the future looking like here for Montreal?
Well, the next thing I think Montreal has to really consider is what you want to do with Carey Price. He is considered probably a top 5 goaltender in the NHL when healthy, but we haven't seen him really regain his elite form that you saw about 2014, 2015. So I think they have to consider what do you want to do with a goalie with nothing in front of him, because, I'm just going to throw this out there. If a team like Edmonton, who's been lacking a solid goaltender, will mortgage you their future outside of everything not named McDavid, that's something I think you would consider. And one principle I've seen, from the Travis Yost is how to be a good NHL GM. You call up the dumb GMs and you keep calling back until they agree to what you want. And the dumbest is Peter Chiarelli. So if I'm Montreal, I think the next move is to try and move the contract of Carey Price, try and find someone who's on that fringe or wants to upgrade their goaltender status. And then I think you're in business. Because if you're going to do a rebuild, you don't do a half build where you hold back some pieces but send out the others. I think this is what's probably going to be best for Montreal. And you've already sent out the captain, you sent out the young guys. You're not going to have Shea Weber until maybe January, so might as well go full circle with it and say, this is what we're going to have to do. This is how we're going to have to rebuild this structure. So send out your last piece and get more assets.
Yeah, so spot on, John. I think the thing I want to ask you and kind of get your opinion, because I'll give you my opinion after I hear yours, is was the PK Subban trade kind of the signaling of the beginning of the end in Montreal?
The Subban trade was an unmitigated disaster because what I was really bothered by was how they said Montreal management wanted a culture change, or there was disagreements in how PK would handle himself versus how Montreal wanted him to. The guy literally never had any bad issues about him. If anything, he was the best Samaritan in the NHL. The Montreal Children's Hospital has a whole wing named after him, if I'm not mistaken. So just to kind of outright say that it was a character issue or disagreement on how he was carrying himself, I think is full-blown BS. So when it was the PK for Shea Weber straight up, like that was a trade a lot of people looked at and thought,
they scratch your head.
It was beyond head scratching, because earlier in the day, that same day, Adam Larson was traded for Taylor Hall, and that very next season, Taylor Hall won the MVP. That wasn't even the worst move of the day. That tells you like how bad things were looking in Montreal in that moment. And yes, I may have my reserves about how I really feel about that franchise, but you don't trade somebody that polarizing within your franchise if you're convinced it's going to help you long term. This move does not help you at all, Montreal. If anything, it signaled the end. Like you said, Alex, this was going to be something that I think they're going to regret.
I agree. I think that the PK Subban trade was, definitely not the oh my gosh, like that's it. The Canadians are done for the foreseeable future. But exactly what you said, John. It just kind of went, okay, well, this is weird, but we'll see what happens. And then, yeah, you see Galchenyuk get sent out. You see Max Pacioretty now get sent to Las Vegas. So you're just going to see that continuing effect. Yes, Carey Price is a legitimate goaltender, legitimate top 5, if not top 10. So you're going to see that progress, and you're going to see something like what's a good recent example? Vancouver. Vancouver is kind of bouncing back now, but Vancouver was bottom of the barrel for the last 4 years.
The joke I saw was after the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011, the Vancouver Canucks not only burnt down the city, they burnt down the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now they've got bright spots. They've got Zemko coming up, still the as a goalie, so still don't know how he's going to play. But you got Brock Besser out there. You've got legitimate talent out there in Vancouver that that you can build a solid team around.
And I think they did it the right way. Is you've built your team around older veterans, and when those guys start heading out, you just gotta cycle in the next wave of talent. So Montreal is just gonna have to be patient with this. And I know again they're the decorated franchise of the NHL, but this isn't the 1960s or 1970s or whatever decade they want to claim to themselves. Those years are long gone. They're at least a decade away from being, I think, in a cup final again.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely think that's just their future, and I don't feel bad for Montreal fans, but I feel bad for hockey, because when Montreal is good, it's good for hockey.
Well, it's the same thing as saying when the Canadians, when the Yankees are good in baseball or the Lakers are good in the NBA. It's better for the league as a whole because that is your model franchise to where a lot of people associate the sports with those teams. They have the most titles. They have the decorated accomplishments with athletes who have come and gone, and how else they really want to, go and get this done.
So while John has an interruption, but like, yeah, so I mean, you can kind of see it, that these guys, it's good for hockey when the original 6 teams, like, Detroit, your Chicago's, your Montreal's are good. It's definitely great for the sport, and it builds on it. So, it sucks in that sense, but yeah, I think both of you can both agree that we don't feel bad for Montreal Canadiens fans.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Okay. Fantastic. So, the long and short of it is Vegas got better. I'm convinced that by the end of the season, Pacioretty is going to have a C on his chest just because of the leadership he exemplified in Montreal. John's giving me the I don't know face, but hey, who else is going to take that? Williams on a year-to-year contract.
When it comes to doing captaincies on a team, I'm just very hard-pressed for the guy who just showed up to kind of be the captain of the room now. You have to think about how a lot of this group, is coming back together outside of some pieces that, did depart via free agency or trade. Your main players are coming back. And, considering what this team went through last year and how they kind of all banded together with what, brought the team and city together, how can you necessarily justify some guy who just showed up here? Not saying it can't happen. It's just that I'd be hard-pressed to think that when it's captaincy, it's not always the best player. It's your best leader. It's your most vocal, calming. I can't even say calming. It's that communicator of the locker room. The guy who runs the yard almost. The big dog. And what I'm thinking is, if you're Max Pacioretty, how do you feel comfortable walking into a situation where you're now seen as the guy? Yeah, he was the guy in a different locker room, but I'm sure he's already seen with his.
But he's arguably also the most experienced player on that team right now.
Well, you also have to look at your goalie.
Fleury. But when was the last time that a captain was a goalie?
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people think it would be someone like him, but if I'm not mistaken, Vegas didn't have a C last year. It was 4 alternates.
They kept moving it around.
So I think that's something that I don't think they're in a rush to put a C on. But if they will, that's just another money grab by the people who print the Vegas Knights jerseys, because that is essentially printing your own money now. Just wait until they have that 3rd alternate jersey.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Gerard Gallant very publicly after 1 October said, I've got leaders all over this thing. So it's going to be 2 assistants or 3 assistants every night. There isn't just going to be one captain. So I don't know. Maybe he changes that decision now that they've kind of made a cup run, or maybe he just keeps going if it's working.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I think. This core, this locker room, just kind of keep everything the way it needs to be, and you kind of let it happen organically, because they don't have one leader. I think they have 15 plus leaders.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. So yeah, guys, that's all we're going to talk about with Vegas. We'll see how the beginning of their season starts. I mean, we can kind of.
You forgot about Nate Schmidt peeing into a cup and getting in trouble for it.
Oh my gosh, yes, Nate Schmidt got suspended. What, 20-something games?
20 games for what was described as a minuscule amount of an unrecognized substance. So I'm like, oof, that's a rough.
Well, the argument has always been that the NHL has the most lenient of all substance or performance-enhancing drug policies. So I don't know how this minuscule amount, quote unquote, is legit. Like, I don't know. I thought. I mean, I don't see Nathan Schmidt any differently right now. I still think he's a great defenseman, and I mean, from what it seemed like sometimes last season, I don't know how this substance was helping him, but at the same time, that's kind of a kick in the butt. That sucks.
No, it's going to definitely make the first 20 games a little more interesting now when you're down one of your top 4 D-men. So if you're the Golden Knights now, you kind of have to, I don't want to say rely on your offense a little bit more here, but you're going to need some guys to step up.
Well, I think it's telling us that Shea Theodore is going to have more of an improved role for the first 20 games. And Colin Miller, he's going to have to be a little bit more rock solid back there. Absolutely not an issue, but that D-core is going to have to pick it up a little bit just because they're missing one of those guys that was in the lineup the entire year last year.
No, it's going to bump everybody up here. So it's going to see interesting how they look the first 20 games, because what you've noticed in years past, if you get off to that fast start, you don't want to fall behind the 8 ball. And I'm not saying they will, but starting off, 15-5 versus say
10-10, just put it at 10-10.
Anything else that kind of puts you behind, you don't want to play catch up the whole year. And I think that's one thing that's going to stand out to me is how do they look coming out the gate?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Nate Schmidt did put out an announcement saying, hey, I don't know how this happened. I don't cheat, yada, yada, yada. He did the right thing there. But I think in the long run, this is just going to be 20 games that he missed for some reason. No one's going to really remember this because it does seem kind of like a little bit, I don't know, I guess the best way to put it is redundant. And the NHL was maybe just trying to make an example of him.
And even then, that's still an odd way of going about business because I still don't even think it's enough to really pop him for. But like you said, for having a very lenient drug testing program, this was an odd one to get somebody on.
Yeah, and they may just be trying to let players out there know hey, we're watching you. We're gonna pop this guy because he just made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, but we're watching you. So who knows? The Knights will adjust. I think they'll be fine. Hopefully they don't come off to that bad start like John says. I mean, it's fun to watch them win. So
I'll be watching.
Yep.
They don't get a schedule to start the season this year. I mean, their first.
John is their biggest critic. You're their biggest critic. Seriously.
Where have I been wrong?
Yeah. Mm. I went to San Jose about a week and a half ago, and I talked to one of our dear friends. His name's Cody. John knows who Cody is, and he said I don't like the Golden Knights because they need to be like every other NHL franchise, and they need to suffer before they actually win something.
You just can't show up and just have everything. This isn't hockey's not supposed to be fun. You're supposed to hate this sport most times. Like the funniest to me, and you can relate directly to this, was the absolute outcry after Game 2 of the semifinals against the Sharks when Martin Jones got bumped into by, I believe it was by a Vegas Golden Knight player, and because he got bumped out of the crease, one of the other Knights players was able to put the puck in the back of the net. But I think it was Riley Smith.
That bumped him out
due to goalie interference. And the absolute outcry I saw about people complaining what goaltender interference was had me in stitches because I'm like, you guys don't know what this is yet. You haven't had a game taken away from you in this fashion. That is a legitimate call. It happens more often than you think. Don't get mad that it happened to you for once.
Oh, it was the other guy on that first line. It was Marchessault. I remember that now. It was Marchessault who bumped him off, and everyone was like, "No, that's not okay.
That's not how we were cheated." First off, calm down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, let's just keep on going and kind of right on that train. Keep talking about the Sharks. Biggest trade, in my opinion, and I think, and John and I actually talked about this outside of the podcast and said, that's like one move that we were kind of surprised not to see yet is Erik Karlsson get moved. So Erik Karlsson got sent to the San Jose Sharks along with prospect forward Francis Perron. And in return, the Ottawa Senators got Chris Tierney, Cobra, Rudolph Balkers, defenseman Dylan DeMello, prospect Josh Norris, and a conditional 2019 second round selection, and a conditional 2020 first round draft selection, contingent on if San Jose resigns Carlson. So if they do, if San Jose does resign Erik Karlsson, they get another draft pick in 2021 in the second round. So lots of weirdness there, but really, all you need to know is that Erik Karlsson went to San Jose. So now, arguably, you've got two of the best three defensemen on one team in Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson is for sure a generational talent, not just a franchise player. He's like a fourth forward out there most times, but he can also hustle back and play defense. And the Sharks are overnight. People are saying that they're a cup contender. I don't buy it. Maybe that's just me being the skeptical Sharks fan. I need to see how this team plays before I can call them a cup contender.
Well, first off, I think you meant Brent Burns, not Marc-Edouard Vlasic. So I know that's what.
Oh, no. I meant Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Brent Burns is an offensive forward, or offensive defenseman. So I meant Vlasic and Erik Karlsson for sure.
Okay. No, fair enough. I just want to make sure I heard that right. But I think what not only Sharks fans, but hockey fans in general need to kind of realize is it's going to take some time for this to kind of mesh together, because Erik Karlsson showing up right at the start of training camp. One thing about hockey is that you got to learn guys' tendencies. You got to know, where certain guys are going to be, how they like to receive the puck, and, kind of expect and anticipate how certain plays are going to develop. But again, just kind of getting used to your line mates, because that's someone you're going to have to kind of get used to for the entire season. And it's not just going to happen that easily. So for Karlsson and the Sharks, it is going to work. I think it just comes down to what you have mentioned, Alex, is how's management going to take care of this? Are they going to be set up for success? Are we going to have the right pairings? Are we going to see the right forward defenseman combinations to where it's going to overwhelm some teams? The potential's there. They just need a plan of attack.
I was thinking about this a little bit earlier as I was playing NHL 19, actually. So if you guys haven't picked it up, it's a great game. The Ducks, the Kings, the Oilers, the Canucks, the Flames, and the Coyotes are probably looking at their schedule and going like, holy moly, we have to plan for Erik Karlsson 3 times a year. And not only them, but you also have to plan for how Marc-Edouard Vlasic plays, and then also those point rockets that Brent Burns is shooting. How do you game plan for that as a team?
Well, first, like I said, how the Sharks, load this thing up, because now you have the ammunition, but how are you going to plan, aim, and fire?
True. No, and you're right. And I mean, if I'm giving my pairings for defense, it's It's Karlsson and Vlasic together, because Vlasic's a lefty, Karlsson's a righty. Then it's either Joakim Ryan or Tim Heed, whoever at the number 2 with Brent Burns, and it's Justin Braun and Brendan Dillon. I mean, as much as it sucks, Brendan Dillon was a top 4 D man, but by default he kind of has to go down because he can't play with Brent Burns. No,
he can't. So I think what I like for the Sharks point of view is how I mentioned that when this trade broke is just the absolute depth now. Like, this is just going to be like a wave of puck moving and blue line to blue line passing. It's, oh no.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, my other biggest question there, as far as also the gelling, is you also don't know what that bottom 6 is going to look like in terms of forwards. Chris Tierney was kind of that anchor there. And I liked him for that reason, not because he did anything spectacular with the puck or anything. He just kind of was solid in that back on the bottom 6. But yeah, now you're kind of filling in with prospects and guys that haven't really proven themselves. I mean, you got Jonas Donskoy, who you can argue isn't the best player on that bottom 6, but I think right now by default he is. You got Dylan Gambrell, Suomela, who was the best player in like the Finnish Hockey League last year. So you've got guys that are going to fill in there, but that's still a big question mark. You've never seen them play together.
They definitely could use Ryan Carpenter right about now. So hindsight 2020. No, it's like what you said, Alex. You need people on the bottom end of your lines to contribute and kind of hold things down, because you can't rely on just 6 guys out of 12 to really carry you. So it'll be interesting to see how the Sharks end up, filling out their bottom 6 and how those guys end up panning out and playing, because this could be, something that actually brings them back down to earth a little bit. Yeah, you have the names on paper, but they're still going to need help, for the other 2/3 of the game.
Yeah, and I mean Kevin LeBanc and those guys, I think they'll figure it out. The other great positive here that if you think about it, is, John, I don't know how many Sharks games you watch with me, but how often was Brent Burns on the ice?
Oh, he was like, does this guy ever rest? Like, Jesus.
Exactly, and that's also the great reason that I love the Erik Karlsson pickup, not only for him but also for Brent Burns, is because they don't have to play those 35 minutes of ice time every night. They can trunk it down another 12 minutes. I'm gonna play 20 minutes of ice time this game because I know that my other guys are gonna get my back.
And I think that's actually a pretty good point to point out, is now it doesn't fall on him. He's
yeah, and where you're really gonna see it is, crossing my fingers here, Sharks make it to the playoffs. That rest is gonna be crucial. Think about it. If you're playing 30 minutes of ice time a game, every game it's another period. So you're pretty much playing like an extra 20 games by the end of the year. Just kind of doing math on top of my head. That's probably not accurate, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Is you're going to play less games and you're going to be less tired at the end of it.
No, I think that's all pretty spot on. Is roster management. I think that's what a lot of people got to realize, is how much it's going to be taken care of on their end.
Yeah, and I think another question I have is, I just hope Peter DeBoer doesn't blow it. We saw it with New Jersey, so.
Realistically, though, we can say that now the Pacific is going to be an absolute bloodbath, and that teams like Anaheim, Arizona, and probably
Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver's still on the up and up, but I
think Vancouver's still a year away, though.
The problem with Anaheim is you did absolutely nothing, and you saw your team get older and start to break down a little bit more. So I'm concerned for the Ducks.
Is Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf going to be anything like they were 3 years ago?
Because that's the problem with games like theirs. They don't get better with age. I mean, you've seen Perry slow down considerably, and Getzlaf being as well as probably one of the top tier centers that we've seen, he's going to slow down as well. Same with Ryan Kessler. So things could start slowing down for the Ducks here pretty soon, and they're in a tough division. And the other team I was thinking of was the Kings, who somehow think Ivla Kovalchuk's going to be something special at 30, whatever.
That's really the only move they made the entire offseason.
Well, because they've spent all their money. It's all 30-year-olds, which is crazy.
Oh, and they re-signed Drew Doughty, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a move they had to make, but that's still a lot of money that they had to invest in him.
Yeah, so we'll see what the Kings do. I mean, I think, was it you, or I think maybe I saw it somewhere else, but it was like, I think like they were like, the Sharks were like, we got Karlsson. The Kings were like, we got Kovalchuk. Edmonton's like, we still have Connor McDavid. Anaheim's like, we have cool third jerseys.
It was on Twitter. It was. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be like how it was in D2, that once they threw on the old Mighty Ducks logo, they played a whole lot better against the Icelandic team.
Yeah. So,
which, if you watch that game from a hockey standpoint, it was just...
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
The only thing I can think was worse was the basketball game played in Space Jam between the Monstars and the Looney Tunes, because it was all layups, and I think there was one jumper, and even then it was still like a mid-range jumper.
Yeah, oh, no, wait. Bill Murray scored a three-pointer, didn't he?
I think it was an alley-oop. I don't know, but I'll have to look back. Case in point, when I look back on that game in D2 against the Icelandic team, it was just absolutely horrible fundamental hockey.
Oh, terrible. Like how do you let a knuckle puck beat you from the goalie.
And not only that, how do you fall for it? How do you let him walk up and wind up for that?
Like, was nobody checking? Was nobody could have poked it away?
There was no scouting, no nothing done in advance.
All five players for the Icelandic team were just in the defensive zone waiting for something to happen.
And then you have the change in the shootout where they put in the girl with the quick glove hand. Don't you think someone in advance kind of like, damn, she's got a good glove. Hey, go low.
Yeah. Come on.
That's on the Icelandic team. So,
but I mean, that's also fantastic scouting by Gordon Bombay to know he was going glove side.
Yeah. But again, terribly telegraphed. Unbelievable. Any other news?
Okay, so now no, we need to talk about Ottawa. Hold on, we didn't even talk about Ottawa. So is Ottawa pretty? I mean, they're a tire fire. They have been a tire fire, but they're officially now a tire fire.
And it's not going to be so much a tire fire. It's that, like, what took so long? Because this franchise has been, like, really teetering on the edge of disaster now for a couple of seasons. And mind you, 2 years ago, they're an overtime period away from going to the Stanley Cup final. And now it's completely gone away.
And I mean, they've got no help. That AHL team, if you look at their roster, what is it, the Binghamton Senators or something like that? No help. No, nothing is coming through the pipeline.
That's where this is one of those rebuilds to where they have to get as many bodies in and start, almost start from scratch because the roster got old or they sent out their best players. And that's kind of what happened. I think the best player now has to be
Craig Anderson.
Maybe. I don't know.
And I'm pretty sure Craig Anderson might ask for a trade here after the first game.
Oh, no. I forgot about Matt Duchene.
Matt Duchene, who's a free agent after the season.
Well, and he says he wants to hang around there. I don't know why, but I just don't see with Ottawa right now just because how good the Atlantic's going to be, and I don't see where this gets better right away. It's not exactly a free agent destination, so whoever they decide to bring in, they either have to somehow finesse out a trade or bring in one of their young guys. It's going to
I mean, in
one of those ways.
And Ottawa management needs to get their effing crap together, man. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, you cannot have this many bad tastes in your mouth for consecutive years.
If you're how do you justify selling season tickets this year?
You don't.
Hey,
they're 50% off. Like, what do you say?
Come see the Leafs. They come here a couple times a year. The Lightning.
That's literally the only reason that people are going to go. They're like, oh, we want to see Marner.
I just don't get, like, where do you go from here? You've already bottomed out. Now what?
Yeah, teams are going to be going to Ottawa to go watch the other team play. They're not going to go to watch them play.
Canada's nation capital deserves better.
Seriously.
Kind of on that point now, which Canadian team is closest to winning a cup right now?
Toronto.
And that's my point is, if this is all in Toronto now that you have Johnny T there, it kind of shows you the disparity because Calgary's still far away. We talked about Montreal. We talked about Ottawa. Vancouver's still young. Edmonton, God knows what. Winnipeg was in the Western Conference Finals last year, completely crapped out.
Is there a team in Newfoundland that they can just make right now?
No, but the popular consensus is that Quebec needs their team back. So I think after this whole Seattle thing gets sorted out, you'll probably see another team end up back in Quebec City.
Team 33 in Quebec?
No, I think someone's going to end up moving.
Carolina. I think that's who moves.
One way or another, Carolina's going to move, whether it be by management or by Mother Nature.
Yep, exactly. Well, like, the other thing is, I mean, I kind of did want to actually talk about that. I didn't say this before this. Sorry, John. But if you're looking at the Sharks roster, right, and we can go with Boston as well because Boston's on the up and up too. Seattle's going to have a draft here pretty soon. Who do you protect? Someone's going to be left exposed inevitably.
As bad as it sounds, this will be one of those. We'll cross that bridge when the time comes. So we'll see what that looks like. And I'm not.
But there's teams out there that are going to be having to give up a huge asset. Like I'm looking at Tampa, and I'm like, who do you protect?
And that's the thing. You don't know what your team's going to look like here in a few years when that time comes. Because you have.
I thought it was this summer.
No, and we don't know what the deadline is going to look like. We don't know what teams are going to finish the year like. We don't know how teams are going to want to kind of protect themselves after that fact. So it's just a matter of, I think, what can kind of be structured at that point, because we saw some teams kind of now saw how Vegas runs their model. Okay, guys, let's be a little smarter with this. We learned from the last time. Let's not have this happen again.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I just hope you don't see any more of those Chicago moves where like, hey, don't pick anyone and we'll give you this player.
Which I think is probably the smart. It's like one of those like handshake deals. Like you kind of saw how Vegas got away with it. Like, hey, if we take this salary, at least throw us another.
John, they protected Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
He's not even the good
Riemsdyk. They protected Trevor Van Riemsdyk. I'm still shaking my head about this one. So yeah, I mean, hey, I still think we should kind of have that in the back of people's minds, is because that's gonna come up here before you know it, and you're gonna be like, holy moly, who do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Oh God!
What do I do with my hands?
I think a lot still needs to be figured out what we're gonna do. If we're gonna have teams that protect the different ways than they did before. Some teams are starting to kind of lock up, more key guys to better contracts, but you can't protect everybody. So what are you okay with losing, or what are you okay with trying to replace? So
yeah, and there's guys that are gonna have expiring contracts too, which they're gonna be like, hey, we don't know if you draft. I don't know if you draft me, I'm gonna resign with you. So, it's also that question.
Very true, sir. What else do we have to cover?
Nothing other than not that I can think of. Do you have anything?
Not too much outside of that. We're in training camp, so preview season will be coming. Be on the lookout for that. Teams that are doing their third jerseys. Some are. I'm looking at you, Winnipeg. That was. You had every chance to go back to your original logo, and you blew it.
The Sharks jersey is probably going to be this dark one, but it's going to have a little bit more dark. It's not going to have any of this white stuff. So we'll see. I'm excited.
Oh, that's all I really have, sir. Good to be back.
Great to be back. Fantastic that we found a way to do this. So I'm happy about it. All right, guys. I think that'll wrap it up for today. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram. Make sure you guys find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play. Make sure you listen to us. John and I are always super receptive to feedback and what do you guys want to listen and hear from us. So on our Twitter, on our Instagram, you guys can see our handles. So find us. We're, if you guys didn't like something, did like something, want to hear more about something, reach out. I think John's motto is, we don't know if we're going to do that, but I'll listen. I will listen. So, so my Twitter handle is RonCal33BPP, but again, it's on our Twitter. John's is Jonathan_R. And yeah, you guys take care. We'll be back soon. John, sign us off from San Diego.
Again, great to be back, guys. Look out for more content here coming soon, and be on the lookout for new content.
Bye.